Next up on the list is Dom Canzone. You remember Dom Canzone, don't you? Of course you do. Put up all of zero point 0.1 B war last year, or for those who don't need everything shorthanded, wins above replacement according to baseballreference.com. 67 games, 188 plate appearances, 168 at bats, 196, 271, 381 for an OPS of 652. And weirdly enough, that's not far from being average. Now, it's not average, and he needed some work to get there. But would you be surprised if I told you that that's an OPS of 83? Well, guess what? It's not. It's 91. 83 was what it was in 2023 when he had a 656 OPS. So offense going the wrong way. 8 homers, and by that I mean, well, you could argue both, but I meant Major League Baseball offense. 8 homers, 17 RBI, if you're into that sort of thing. 1 stolen base, 18 walks, and 53 strikeouts. So let's not just go back to 2024. Let's go back to 2023. And the Mariners make the ever so popular decision to trade Paul Sewald at the deadline. And they acquire Josh Rojas, Ryan Bliss, and Dom Canzone. And Bliss was easily my favorite player in that deal and remains so. But there was a lot of hype surrounding Canzone and the numbers that he was putting up at the AAA level. And, a good player at Ohio State, young hitter, showed big time power. And then he comes to Seattle. And he has 215, 248, 407. But, he frustrated us for sure. There were many videos regarding Dom Canzone, because I recap every game. There's going to be videos featuring every player. But there were some real flashes. I mean, that home run he hit to tie the game against Baltimore. Of course, they lose that game, but huge home run. There were moments that suggested Dom Canzone has a chance to be a regular. And then he just tore the cover off the ball in spring training and was so good in spring training. And Luke Raley was so bad in spring training that Dom Canzone opens the year as the opening day left fielder and the guy who was getting those at bats against right-handed pitching. Oh boy, did that change. And I don't want to write off a 27-year-old. And even last year, there were some spurts, short spurts, very short spurts. I guess that might be a little bit of a redundant thing. But boy, most of it was struggles. And if you take a look at the Baseball Savant page, it shows you a lot of struggles too. So Canzone doesn't end up qualifying for anything, in part because there was an injury, in part because, well, we'll talk about his platoon stuff, and also in part because he was struggling so bad that you couldn't use him as an everyday player. But he would qualify above average in some stats. Base on ball walk. Wow. Don't know what the heck that is. I guess I do, but that is not what I was trying to say. Walk rate, 9.6%. So he walks in nearly 10% of his plate appearances. That's pretty solid. Barrels to baseball, 11.1%. That would rank well above average. Hard hit percentage of 44.4. That would also rank slightly above average. Expected slugging of 426. Right around that above average rank. Average exit velocity, 89.9. Same thing that you could say there. Expected weighted on base average of 307 is slightly below average, but not terrible. Shows good bat speed, 72.4 miles per hour on his swings. That's right about above average as well. And he squares up the baseball about an average amount of time as well, 24.2, which is a long way of saying that when Canzone did draw his walks, that's great. And when he put the ball in play, some good stuff happened. When is such a operative term here, because this guy struck out in 28.2% of his plate appearances, and he swung and missed 34.4% of the time. That is over a third. 1 out of 3 times, more so, just barely, but more so, he swung and missed. And what's crazy is you have this good walk rate, and it's not really indicative of his chase rate. He swung at pitches outside the strike zone 37% of the time, which would rank among the absolute worst in baseball. I mean, his contact issues, there were a lot of Mariners with contact issues, and we just kind of forget about Canzone's because we saw other guys do it more. There were just guys who played more. But Dominic Canzone just cannot put the ball in play enough. And while the power is good, as you see from that expected slugging percentage of 426, that's very solid. It doesn't make up for the swing and miss issues. It doesn't make up for them at all. On top of that, he's a well below average runner. And while he is a guy who has a very strong throwing arm, he's a poor defensive player. Better in left field than in right. It's very odd how much better he is in that on one corner and compared to the other, but clearly reads the baseball better. It's just not a good enough profile. And you have to max out everything with Dom Canzone in order to make him, heck, not a regular, just a playable player. Because, yeah, the tools are clearly there. The power is there. The approach is there. And I account approach as a tool. I absolutely do. But boy, and you know what? Maybe the approach isn't there because that walk rate and that chase rate just can't correlate. And if you were asking me on eye test, which was more indicative of what kind of player Dom Canzone is, I would say the chase rate and certainly the whiff rate. And, we'll take a look at some splits now too that kind of tell the story about some other flaws with Dom Canzone. Actually, it kind of changed my mind. I hit pause to pull that up, and then I thought, well, you know what? Let's take a look at some of the pitch tracking because, oh boy, this will not shock you. Breaking balls gave Dom Canzone a lot of trouble. Now, let's take a look at what he did against fastballs first. Batting average of 232 against them. Not great, but, expected batting average of 259. Slugging percentage of 449 is very solid. Expected slugging of 540. So it is worth pointing out that there were some just in smoke moments for Dom Canzone. And you can consider that a compliment. You can consider that an insult. Just consider it. So he should have had a better slugging percentage, like a considerably better, almost 100 points higher. And then his expected weighted on base average against fastballs is 367 compared to what his actual weighted on base average was of 320. So he can hit the fastball. There's no doubt he can hit the fastball. A lot of people can, but it's important to be able to do so. If you can't do it in today's day and age, best of luck to you. Against breaking balls, okay? And here's something that's interesting too. You don't see this very often, but he actually faced more breaking balls than he did fastballs. You think there was a book on Dom Canzone? He had 75 plate appearances against fastballs, but they threw 270 breaking balls against him, 269 fastballs, and then also 157 off-speed pitches. So over 60% of the time, this dude was facing not fastballs. And to say he wasn't effective against them is the understatement of understatements. In fact, he got a little bit lucky against breaking balls. So, like I said, 270 times he faced him, 62 plate appearances, 54 at bats. He had 11 hits in those 54 at bats. That's 204. Honestly, that's not as terrible as I thought it would be. It's still not good. 204 against anything is bad. His expected batting average against breaking balls was 154 because he whiffed 43% of the time against the bendies. Slugged 370, expected slugging of 307, weighted on base average of 279, expected weighted on base average of 242. It's just not even close to good enough. That just can't work. It cannot work. Now, against off-speed pitches, which is your changes, your splits, and maybe some misidentified pitches as well, 157 plate appearances, 177 pitches, 45 at-bats, 49 plate appearances. He hit 133 with a 289 slugging percentage and a weighted on-base average of 219. That's the book. That is absolutely the book. And while he did draw a lot of walks, there's no reason for anybody to throw him anything bendy. And here's the thing, too. And, I've talked about this a few times and I always feel like I'm going to get yelled at. Walking for Dom Canzone is not the same for everybody else because he's not going to help you as a base runner once he gets on base. You have to play station to station, and the way the Seattle Mariners are built, it's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. So, okay, so now let's pull up those splits because the Mariners know it, but. So here's the thing about the splits. You know, the Mariners clearly know what they have in Dom Canzone in terms of this, that there's just no way he's ever going to be able to hit left-handed pitching. And so they didn't bother. He had all of 14 plate appearances against them, 13 at bats, did not get a hit. He struck out 8 times in those 13 at bats. He had a 0.71 on base percentage. Yeah. 700 OBP against right-handed pitching, which is above average, which still drives me insane. But yeah, he's absolutely useless against left-handed pitching. And boy, it's hard to justify a roster spot talking about that, or looking at that. Much better away from the friendly confines of T-Mobile Park. Hit 224, 284, 435. That's a 720 OPS. Decent. And then 583 at home. 169, 258, 325. That's a 583 OPS, like I said. It's not shocking to me at all that he would be better away from Safeco Field. It's not a great place for hitters like him to hit, which is why it's kind of weird that they were, so interested in an approach like that. Batting on average on balls in play, by the way, against, got to scroll back up. Sorry about that. That's the way. Boy, an edit button sure sounds good. At home, it was only 204. So there was some bad luck there. Away, 255. That kind of matches what he should have had. But it's just an approach that it doesn't play well in this ballpark. And I don't think that it ever will. I'm trying to be positive. I can't. First half, a 684 OPS. Second half, just 480. It's worth pointing out that he only had 29 plate appearances. So April, March, it's still weird to me. That's the way they list it. Actually kind of decent. 219, 286, 531. That's an 812 OPS, which also shows you that OPS is a flawed figure because the 286 on base percentage is bad. The 531 slugging is great. The on base percentage matters more. It's a more important stat. Everything after that, except for June. We'll talk about June in a sec. May, 527 OPS. July, 483 OPS. August, 480 OPS. But in June, 268, 359, 411. That's your kind of best case scenario. And in fact, that's better than your best case scenario. I don't think Dom Canzone could ever get on at a 360 clip. I think he can slug higher than 411. But 720, 740 OPS, I think that's your peak of what you're going to get. And it's nice that in his largest sample, he was pretty good. It's hard to ignore those other numbers, right? Even though he only played in 33 games in May, July, and August, and then 14 in April, March. Again, just the dumbest thing. June is his largest sample of appearances by a considerable margin. But if you add it all up, right, it's hard to get too excited over 1 month. Is there anything else here interesting in terms of splits? No, really bad after swinging at the first pitch. A lot of people have success. 240, 253, 440. Nice to see some pop. But when he took the first pitch, 161, 284, 333. So I think we could possibly say that Dom Canzone probably needs to be a little more assertive, right? Like that walk rate's nice, and I want him to get on base because Dom Canzone's best path is 3 true outcomes, right? Out, homer, strikeout. Those that's the best situation for him, is being that Jack Cust, to take it back old school. That's the best thing that I think you can hope for here. So I do want to see him draw free passes, but I also want to see him be more assertive, you know, because clearly hitting late and counts is not his thing. So, long story short, and I know we're just really recapping what happened. Um, I don't have a lot of hope for Dom Canzone. And I think someone would be interested in him on the trade market just because of what he's done in AAA and a few glimpses of being a decent little ball player at the highest level. But he would not be. I don't want to do the Jim Halpert, the Dwight false I don't miss him thing, but it's hard to say that he's a part of their core, right? So, you guys still have hope in Dom Canzone? I can't believe this is a 16-minute video on a guy who played 67 games. I just can't shut up. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. We'll be back with another one tomorrow. I don't remember who it is, but I will remind you. Thank you for everybody who stayed till the end of this video. Everybody who has joined Mile Y Enthusiasts, and yes, that includes previous people, get a chance to win an autographed Mike Trout baseball. Yep. Be a pretty cool present for somebody. Maybe I'll do that. No, we'll have to wait till the end, but it'll be a good delayed present. Yeah, Mike Trout's pretty good. I don't think Dom Canzone is.